Did you get up?
Yeah, of course. And then we
Record.
did transferring to the car,
You don't want Doris in this?
you know.
That you do,
That's not, was
you
not a
do that all
problem.
the time.
I know, but that was not a problem, but
I know, Mark, they're getting up.
the getting up from the floor, she's like, you gotta, yeah, I know you're gonna fall, you gotta practice it now.
Oh, it's not gonna snow in October.
No.
No, we have snow one year in October.
Well, is
Have you even started
have you
changing
fallen
the
in the
road?
list?
Snow?
getting up.
Have you fallen in the list?
Trees are falling because the way there's snow. Oh, that's out in the middle of the state.
Testing,
That's hot
testing.
good out there.
September
It's pretty out
15th,
there though.
2011.
Gorgeous, gorgeous state. To the coast, the middle of the state, and the mountains. Yeah. New York, upstate New York is gone.
Yeah. What's gone about?
They lost towns.
Where my daughter lives, upstate, they couldn't leave their home.
Yeah.
Every road was flooded.
Yeah.
And the town next to her, they evacuated to Oneonta. They
Which
used Oneonta as
evacuation center, yeah.
the town was Sydney, and
Okay.
she lives in Unadilla.
Yep.
Because they didn't have a good highway to cross.
Marketsville's gone.
The
Wyndham's
Susquehanna
gone.
River comes over there.
We got 12 inches of rain over the center of the state. Just stayed there. 12 inches of rain.
It's really awful. My daughter has a pond.
We'll keep going.
Oh, yeah? Well, the pond just went very slow.
Well,
It's good thing our house is on.
The one thing I could never believe is when they get in the middle of.
How you doing?
oh, the island?
I said, what are they doing? And now the people are complaining they're getting flooded.
Well, that's okay. The islands are high and dry. It's around the area. The villages from Valley's getting flooded out.
It's all garbage.
It's just crazy.
I knew it when I gave it to
It's
you,
just
but
crazy.
I didn't want you to say, why did everybody else get it, not you? Remember, she said that the
Yeah,
other day.
probably.
So I laughed.
We had another one this year.
But everybody else got the scar.
I know.
Yeah. I knew it.
All summer long.
I knew it, Joe.
It's really, most people don't know.
Into the swamp.
But it's that groundwater. The groundwater's so high. And you're up on a hill. Just imagine people in the
My
bottom of
daughter
it.
didn't have electricity or water for a whole year. Because her water is a pump.
Which one, the one on the left or the right?
She doesn't have a generator?
Come up the hill.
She came to her mother.
Oh, yeah, so yeah.
So it's a good thing, right?
That's a good thing.
They said it might be.
Huh?
My granddaughter.
Oh, I- okay. You look familiar, but I'm getting old. Huh? Joan? No, my mind.
Well, yeah, what do you think they want to have done? Start immediately.
Huh? 67.
Swell, it's gonna help. It's gonna catch up.
Because they said that was boys.
It's amazing. My body might almost.
The problem is,
Daughter has
the
it.
boy don't have no gas.
Let me 53.
And put together all
You
this
got
stuff
the land,
and get
you got
it.
floods, but it's slow.
You know,
You get mountains,
he said,
but you
yeah,
build these houses up in the
something.
Catskills, they're at the bottom of the
My
mountains.
daughter.
Because that's where they live.
67.
Creeks, where that's where they build.
My,
So they're
he
building
says
houses at
that
the bottom of these mountains. How come
Yeah,
they build
everything's
these mountains
falling
at a higher speed?
that
And it's all
Met
rock.
Doris in the doctor's
It's not
office.
dirt, like flat, like dirt.
It was funny. She's standing, I didn't know when I came in.
Yeah.
See the girl asked the person next to me.
The ice from right over the town, that's where the ice comes right over. The water came in,
Yes.
One half
Oh,
of
so
service.
For the
It's not
county.
kidding, after me,
There was no
no
price.
price.
For
Yeah, she said a
2
drug.
hours. I pulled off the
So she has a
first
good job.
pulled all
I
the
know she had
stuff
a-
like that.
So what they gonna
Yeah.
get, a little time down?
It's been on
Twins are
her son.
But I told her, after tonight, she might be good at this.
Chemical sound, but towards the outer banks, they were walking from,
Because people are pulling.
Mag said,
No, what it turned out,
2 miles out to the sound.
the last single bit of what was remaining of the
Because
road.
they all
I
got pushed over.
So little, they're so
But they
susceptible.
better not be out there
was gonna
those
say, I
tomorrow,
was
they'll
in
push you back in.
Get fine, it snapped, and everything first.
Oh,
But I didn't get that, I didn't get it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's why class sizes are big. And then when the roll really
Jump
gets
into
into
hoops to get documentation on my stamp.
So they're closing classrooms.
No power.
That's what they're closing.
Steered away.
Did you ever have a problem with it before?
You know, we had a lot of tree damage from the
Yeah, you
soil.
can read them like a book.
But we had more water damage from this. We had less
Oh,
tree
yeah.
damage from
I
this.
know.
That's good. Had good weather.
Floyd was horrible. One of the things was, there was a drought there prior to Floyd.
There were three
There were
mailings
loopholes
plus a
that were small.
newsletter.
They were
Three
out-
mailings
They were
plus a
inside,
newsletter.
inside
What's the matter
the
with
drip
you?
lines.
I felt since it was on
I
9/11.
think the
You
storm
should
was
have
a
said
little bit more
there'll
east.
be, I'm sure you had something. I know. But in one, at least one of us should have said
Yeah,
there'll be
I didn't
a
notice that.
short ceremony, one
We
o'clock.
had, we
These kids
had
are
like
still
200 calls.
You know, in the advertisement.
Once you got there, I thought we were too. Floyd, we had thousands.
No, I'm not down because you did.
Like I asked, we got so many trees down, we came out to buy the ball.
The little statue
So we
said,
had a drought.
So she
It
can't
struck up.
went to the little girl.
You're coming down on the 21st to the UN.
No, I know.
Well, we had,
I'm a
I
dinner
have
John.
some.
I'm a dinner John is at the UN. I go every time you come down.
10 weeks.
we did have land as you would
He doesn't know. I wish he knew me.
We had, but
So
not as
I
many as
emailed
we would
her,
expect.
her name is Karen, so the other day, because she actually listened.
Yeah, yeah.
She increased her number
Those,
of
they have
dividends
locust
that
trees
she
along
wanted.
the Hollow
They said
Road,
she's
they're
great.
horrible.
And in 3 years, you won't be able to get the cash.
Plus
So
it's
then I
a
go
narrow
back.
road, so
Boy,
it's tree lined.
actually, a daughter of
They're
mine
up on the
listens,
banks,
even if it's
down in the
about
hole.
cups and
So
saucers.
the one side, everything's up on the bank there.
Actually,
No,
Ulman saw before 8 o'clock, yeah, we watched.
No, I don't.
down by, Fellowship, it was with them. Just from Raymond Avenue going up the hill. Yeah, that's all the damage was, close to the high bank up there. And they've cut a lot of trees out of there. Last year, they cut a lot of trees out. Yeah, and then, yeah, but then, Rockland Highway went in, they took a lot of stuff down.
I've always wanted to quote from.
Yeah, it was a strange storm, you know. What bad was it, wasn't June 23rd storm. That was hard. It was 4 inches
Oh,
in 25
time?
minutes. Yes.
2 minutes, 7:15. Yeah.
I think we're gonna have a mild winter. I really do. That's what my foot is telling me. Good.
Well,
I wish I would stop listening to your sound. They have to. I know.
Linda demands to know what it is, right?
What?
Linda demands to know.
Linda knows what it is, believe me, she spends it.
Well, she needs to know how much to spend.
Oh,
Don't
Joan,
worry,
welcome
she
back.
got carte
Hello,
blanche.
how are you feeling?
I'm doing well. My pelvis is healing.
You look well.
Thank you. I never should have gone to that cookie. I went for a cookie. That's what I did, and my leg twisted. I went straight down and broke.
You know, the same time this happened, the same thing happened to Charlie Vogel's wife on the bar mitzvah dance floor 2 months ago, and also pelvis area, yeah.
They don't do anything for it, just
Yeah,
pain
it has to
pills
heal,
and rest.
yeah.
What, for Sutters? You missed it, it was the first Saturday in August. It was Mom. It was Mom.
Yes, it is.
It's the first Saturday in August.
7:15.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I mean, there's a lot of kids that graduate like 70, 71. We're old. But I know I had a few people in my class.
Two and the
Salad
one.
bars,
Not insomnia.
You step 3.
3.
3 at least.
Not since
At
I'm
least
here.
3, yes, at least 3. What do you hear, a year or 2, Florence?
5.
It's that long, they haven't been able to fix these doors, so they close by
The doors
themselves?
are fixed.
Not the other day, are they?
The doors are fixed. The handyman fixed them. He put them in how they belong.
Yeah, it's,
They're
it
fixed.
was
I was at the zoning board meeting last week, they weren't, but now they are, you're
No,
right.
they were fixed
I saw
before
a
the
guy
zoning, but they were
collect-
fixed like 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
they are.
pledge
We put them
allegiance.
in.
Pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Sean, how you doing? Good, how are you? You guys, one in the rainbow, is it wrapped like this? Really fast like this? 2 floors, you know. Nice, when he got back. So he was just screaming.
For those who don't know, the picnic is probably the best one we ever had. And everybody was thrilled with it. And even though we didn't have as many volunteers, we didn't need as many. But we did, we were able to cover everything, so it really was terrific. This is the open floor public discussion. Did anybody sign in to speak?
My name's Joe Mancini, 120 Sutton Place. We have issues over there with a broken storm drain, which they have a hole that's been between the 2 properties, 116 Sutton Place and 120. Since July, they dug a hole. The storm drain is compromised. They tried to fix it 3 times, going back a couple of years ago. The pipe was broken, they came in with a machine and ripped out a piece of the pipe. Then a couple of years later, you know, we had a sinkhole again. One of the guys came there and filled it in with some type of material. And now the pipe collapsed again. And they dug it up, and the pipe is rotted, it needs to be repaired. I'm getting water in my basement from the pipe because the pipe is compromised, and it's starting to compromise from a different end too. From the main road, I would say about 80 feet in from the main road, it's the soil over there starting to cave in. And also, we have another issue with the flooding in front of my driveway. The water just backs up from Sutton Place halfway into my new driveway. The road is pitched incorrectly, and I've notified the highway department, and nothing's been done about it. I've also notified the highway department about across the street from my property, the overgrowth that's blocking the storm drains. They've done nothing about it. I have pictures here, if you'd like to see the pictures. Yeah, you can have them. This is the hole that's in the easement between my property.
We'll pass them down, we'll, Doris. Show them to Doris.
Across the street, there's a storm drain. All that growth, the water never makes it there.
Is this the easement?
Yes. This is all the growth that's over onto the road that's blocking the one of the other storm drains there. This is the water that just backs up into my driveway. If you look down in this picture, it just, it basically,
Look at any of these ones?
Yeah, I got it.
the water just floods here and floods into my neighbor's driveway. It doesn't even make it into the cul-de-sac. It's supposed to make it to this storm drain over here, but it never makes it.
As I mentioned before, spoke to Martin, who had suggested that we put a camera, all right, and see how bad that.
We already looked up that pipe, we got 3 lengths we have to replace.
Tony, just say, for the record,
Tony Sharon, 26 Pioneer Avenue, Superintendent Highway. We are out there, we dug up a hole to find out that what we had where that sinking was originally, the pipes rotted out. It has to be replaced, about 3 sections of pipe. As for the water not going through, I believe it might be further down where the water goes into the park property, due to the high water table. So it might be something that we'll have to walk in to find out if we have any obstructions. I don't even know where that wood's empty out into. I don't know if there's an easement behind the shopping center or something like that. We have to take a look at the maps.
All right, well, whatever has to be done, it's our reason.
Well,
So-
right, we were scheduled to go in there. The problem was we got caught with this event last week. We're still cleaning up roads, still finding stuff out there that's in the travel lane, so that's being worked on now. With the groundwater so high in his yard, to put a machine back there now, I would do more damage than anything else, because it's like a swamp back there. We're hoping to get a dry period in there, to get a machine in there. Last time we were in there with a machine, it was pretty dry. We didn't tear the yard apart. We took that piece of pipe out at the end, and we didn't make any mud. If I go back there now, we're gonna make a mess.
Well, the issue, the pipe, if it's rotted in one spot, and it got repaired 3 times we were working on it, it's rotted.
I only repaired it once. That was at the end.
Okay.
And we took that piece of rotted pipe.
Yeah, but-
After we looked at it again,
But it collapsed. This is the second time it
right,
collapsed.
well, we know it's rotted, because village engineer was out there, they looked in the catch basin on the road. Martin's suggestion is to repair what's rotted. My suggestion is to replace the whole pipe, so we don't have to go back there 2 or 3 times, because this is gonna keep on rotting out. The pipe is probably 50 years old, ever since your house was built, probably in the 50s or early 60s.
63.
You're talking, 50 years. So that pipe is rotted, it's a steel pipe. They don't last forever, so.
Better off just putting plastic in there.
Well, that's what we plan to do, a 24-inch piece of plastic.
So it's Martin's decision to,
No, it's trying to get it scheduled to where we can go in there and do the less damage that we have to do.
but is Martin's decision to basically say just replace 3 lengths of pipe, not replace the whole pipe?
No, he didn't say that. I was the one who spoke to him today, He said to look at that and see if the rest of the top pipe was okay.
Once you start on the downhill side and work towards the basin, you're gonna find out that the 3 sections we pull out are completely rotted. The further you up go towards the road, the more rot I expect to find. We haven't found the sinkings yet, because they haven't shown up, but not much water going through that pipe from that storm. It's bound to have some erosion around that pipe somewhere.
Well, if it needs to be replaced, we'll replace it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll think,
It's our reason.
When can I know that you guys are gonna make a decision that you're gonna replace the whole pipe?
The decision is, whatever has to be done, will be done. That, we've already made that decision. The big decision is when Tony can get in there to do it. As much as needs to be replaced will be replaced. If it means the whole pipe, it will be the whole pipe. The problem is, he can't get in the wet weather.
What I would like to do, I like to schedule it in the wintertime, when the ground's frozen. Because this way in the spring, we get the damage fixed. I mean, it's going this long. I don't expect to see any more tropical storms come up, but we can get 2 or 3 inch rainfall.
If you're gonna wait till the winter, all I suggest is to make it more safer over there, because, there's kids there.
Well, that's why we put the plywood over the hole.
Well,
so-
my neighbor has kids, they play soccer, ball goes over the fence.
Well, we didn't want to fill it in because we knew we had to dig up that hole. We wanted to know where we were going to start at. So we can get in there and fill it back in again.
What about the other issue with the water backing up into my driveway halfway up there?
I had to take a look at the elevations. I think it's downhill from your driveway to that basin. Could be a slow flow,
Because it backs up, it stops actually at my neighbor's driveway, which is the first house in the cul-de-sac. It never makes it into the
It's
cul-de-sac.
not supposed to make it into the
Because it's supposed to go to the other
It's supposed to go
basin.
down in between you and your neighbor's house. That's where the catch basins are. Once you go into the circle, that's all downhill.
Okay. Now what about across the street with all that road?
That's not a problem. It's a 5-minute job to cut the road.
Even if they cut it low, throw grass there, I'll go there with the
I'm not gonna
lawnmower.
grow grass there, whatever there is.
Well, if you get it
that's
cleaned up, I'll go there and I'll cut it with the grass, with my
Okay.
tractor and everything.
we whack it next day or so.
Like, there is a lot, there's a lot of trees, tree branches in there, there's a lot there.
Don't you need to see their pictures at all?
I'll look on it.
Who's next? Who's signs up that next?
Hal Sherman, 8 Pine Knoll Court, Village of Chestnut Ridge. Easement. Is there some money that's floating around? I know FEMA had said that they were going to make some funds available. Anything in the
I
works?
think they made $32 million available to the entire state of New York. This is like a joke. Most of the damage, as I understand, took place up to your Haverstraw.
Haverstraw, Suffern, Montebello, Slopestone.
I spoke to him again.
I spoke to Brian Dougherty. I spoke with him. What was disturbing is, and he had said that they were going to lift the pipe, encapsulate what was below it, throw some rock down. They are not repairing the easement. They are not correcting the easement. That their project was to expedite the flow of water through my property. And that was it. I notified last week that a rather large tree in the easement came down. Went through the fence, went into the pool. Florence had called. I did notify my insurance company. I have a very large deductible. They won't cover any vegetation. So, I mean, I haven't gotten a settlement from them yet, but again, this is the easement. We've marked the trees 10 years ago. Mr. Mitzner was in there. Some of the trees have fallen. You were there. They removed one of the large dead trees. This is still a village problem. I was here in August, well actually July. August we were on vacation. I think there still has to be some plans. If the state is not entailing to repair this, okay? My deed says there should be a 20-foot easement. It's 32 feet wide. I don't know that they're going to repair it. We said that if it's a village's problem, they would take care of it. I still think we need to have some plans, whether Mr. Spence or another engineer gets out there, looks at the problem, and makes some recommendations. There's got to be something that's done. We talked about the large storm on June 23rd that overflowed the area. Well, last week was no different. I mean, it wasn't as concentrated as time-wise, but the volume of water came down Spring Hill, 45, to the easement at 945 Chestnut Ridge Road. It overflows the banks right there. Doesn't even get down to my area. It goes across the 945's property. It goes between my house, which is 8, and number 6. The water is about 2 to 3 feet deep. It goes out into the street. The other water coming down the street, coming down off of Pine Brook into Pine Knoll. It then goes around my house and then exits to the left of my house, between my house and 10 Pine Knoll Court. I'm an island. This is 3 times, June 23rd, July 1st, last week. This is not a 100-year storm. 3 times.
No, I'm serious. I think the football
Well,
is one of those.
last week was a 100-year storm?
The Irene was, yeah.
And how about June 23rd?
That's a 4 inches in a half hour, I think that might qualify for it.
And then we had July 1st, I think it was.
I don't know, about July.
I know, so we're talking,
So we're good for the next 300 years.
right?
Yeah,
Some things, you know, this
We
is
have put
water.
in for FEMA funds for your project.
For your project.
That's one of the things we have listed.
We applied for FEMA, or we do have funds?
No, we
We've
applied.
applied,
to
the funds
FEMA.
are not
Okay.
available yet
No, I'm just saying, but
for this storm.
But did we
yeah.
do any engineering? Did we look at any type of alternative? Mr. Spence, 2 years, 3 years ago now, had recommended, and he actually lined it out about putting the riprap down. It didn't work. It got blown away between the volume of the water that comes through there. And that was when it wasn't overflowing. Now that it is overflowing, now that it doesn't even get to my property before the easement is completely useless, 945 is right on Chestnut Ridge Road, directly across from the Temple parking lot. The water volume is such that it completely flows across that yard. It flows, and the next door neighbor put up a huge fence. It flowed right under the fence, around the fence. It came across the yard between my house, which is 8 and 6. Then it goes in the street, and then it comes between my house, which is 8 and 10.
Hal, let's hold.
Tony, you want to?
most of the water coming down 45 starts up at Hunger Hollow Road. The storm structures on 45 have failed. Every one has failed. They were silted in, they got poles dug through them. So when it hits Pine Brook Road, it's going down Pine Brook Road, goes down to another crossing, goes down Pine Oak Court. That's from uphill. But comes off of Spring Rock and Orchard Circle and a few of those roads up there, all come down to that area. And that's what runs through this easement. Until the state gets out there and does some work on these pipes, we're gonna keep having this problem every time it rains. If we get a good 2-3 inch rainfall an hour, we're gonna get the same problems as we always have.
And every time we talk to the state, we get the
The
same
state,
answer.
I talked to the state, last time I talked to the engineers, it's scheduled to go out, 2012.
April of 2012.
That's when the bid's gonna go out. The problem is, depending on the financing at that time, if it's gonna go out to bid.
Yeah, I spoke to, and I don't know if you've spoken to Karen Dupree, she was the real estate specialist.
Now, I deal with the residential engineering.
No, I dealt with Mr. Doherty, but she said that she had approached a lot of the people along there that they were going to have to purchase some of the land temporarily,
Yeah,
and she's having some property
temporary.
problems, right? She's gonna have to use eminent
Well,
domain.
That's eventually, that's the last step. I imagine property owners will sell or give them the easement. Basically, it's a temporary easement just to walk on your property, so when they do construction, the guy steps on, out of the town, out of the village, out of the state, right away, they don't get sued. It's gonna be a job, like I said, I don't know if it's gonna go for sure, but every state project that's been out so far has been pulled back. And with the damage that New York State has from these 2 storms, who knows what's gonna happen? I don't know how much FEMA's gonna give us.
If they'll give us anything.
Well, FEMA's will give us something, but don't forget, they only pay 87%. The other 12% is on the village or the town.
I asked Brian whether or not they could split this off and just take care of his property now before they do anything else, and they said, no, it's gotta be the complete.
Gotta be the
it's
same
gotta be the
bid.
complete,
Complete bid package. They're not gonna do it in steps.
I know, I thought maybe we could get around it a little bit, because there may not be that much money to get at least some of it done before, but they won't do it, they won't break it up.
So this is all contingent on this project going forward. And we're now hearing, and we know that it may be pulled back.
Wait, no, it's also contingent on FEMA, whether FEMA will give us funds. You're on our, we only named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We applied to FEMA to fix 8 storm-related problems, and yours was one of them. We didn't apply to fix 32,000 problems. We applied for 8. And so we're hoping that with that limited number, that we will get funds from FEMA to help you. And that's exactly what we're trying to do before this other project.
But we still don't have another contingency. We still don't have anything. If the state decides not to do this, we're dependent on maybe FEMA is going to give us some money. This is not, that's a maybe. This is not something new. This has been going on. I've been speaking, and I don't know how many times I've been up here, but I'm sure within the last 3 to 4 years, I've been up here enough that I've become a regular. And I think there has to be some type of contingency plan that if the state, if FEMA, something can get done. At this point, we know where the water source is coming from. We know where it's going to. But the problem is, what exists there cannot handle the volumes of water, whether it's a 100-year storm, a large thunderstorm, it can't handle it. Something needs to be done immediately. We'll have more storms, we'll have large spring rains. The erosion, another tree will come down. Luckily, there are no trees on my side, that my house is that close. But 44 Howler Crescent, those trees are very close to his house. You might find that one of the trees in the easement is going to come down on his home.
Guess what? If a tree falls on your property, your problem.
This tree wasn't even on my property.
No, it doesn't matter. Anybody's, your next door neighbor.
It's not that his problem.
No, this is in the easement.
Which then goes back to their insurance.
Their insurance. It's not,
No,
look, Mr. Sherman, we understand. It's not that we don't empathize with you. The problem is to do something now and then for the state to come in and tell us we did it wrong or to do it differently or is it's not feasible.
I didn't
for us
even say
to
do
that.
something. I said a contingency plan.
Well, let's
Some
see.
engineering study that would alleviate the flooding, alleviate the erosion, and by this time next year, if it hasn't been done, then that plan could be implemented. But to not do anything is negligent. You need to have something in the works that if the state says, okay, we're lifting that pipe out, but we're just going to encapsulate, and they're not going to do anything else. Well, part of the problem is that the easement itself is going to be inadequate, and especially if they're going to channel more water down that way. How are they going to channel more if we get flooded now? It needs to be addressed at least with a plan.
So Mr. Sherman, if we have a plan to do X and more water than we anticipated is added to the problem by the state, at that time, that means we have to do it over again or make adjustments to that, and that's money that we don't have.
But at least you're making an effort.
But we don't have that now. But maybe with when we see what funds are available from FEMA that we get, we'll know what to do before the state does that, which may help you now and would not be impacted by what the state does later on.
Yeah, but Mr. Cohen, are we waiting 30 days, 90 days,
We have to-
120 days?
Since we don't have the money
No, I don't.
to do anything on it right now, we have to wait to see what FEMA will give us.
Isn't it submitted on the 21st or something?
20th.
20th.
I'm going to a meeting.
That's the
on
first
20th.
kickoff meeting.
Over the last 5 years, I would bet that the village, between engineer study, removing a tree, putting in riprap, trying to move a rock, putting in a fence, you don't think they spent $25,000?
No, I don't think they spent, and if that cost $25,000, what do you think it would cost to redo that whole thing? I mean, we're trying to be as practical as possible in terms of doing the project. We're not, you know, being fluff about it. We understand it, and that's why that was one of the really big projects we put on our list. We're trying very hard to get funds to do it.
I know, but at least there has to be a plan. Take what the state is saying they are going to do and take it one step further. What is it that needs to be done to prevent the overflow, prevent the water from inundating the entire area?
Well, according to Tony, the biggest problem is Route 45, and that's what the state is doing. Right, Tony?
They're just bringing more water down there.
That's the biggest problem.
The amount of flow that's gonna be coming down there is gonna be, the same, if not more. It might be a little bit more faster speed. There's no water retention being built. They're just replacing the pipes that have open swales. Open swales, the water takes longer to run through the ground. If they put a pipe in, the water's gonna run faster. That's the only thing. Problem is though, I don't know if they're gonna go down Pine Brook Road with pipe or all the way down to the easement. If they go all the way down to the easement, it's gonna be more water going through that easement because we lose a lot of water going down Pine Brook Road. Because everything's on top of the ground and that's the first opening that it finds is the Pine Brook Road. Everything that Hal's catching is coming off of Spring Rock, Spring Hill Terrace, Orchard, and all that area.
What was he doing? When we were there and they had 9 people from the state there, what were they planning on doing? What were they talking about doing?
Basically, they're gonna put a drainage in 45 and sidewalks, I know that's gonna happen, and repave the road.
But the part that they would do for the Sherman's property, in other words.
Well, basically, they wasn't gonna do anything, but we kind of pushed them into securing that sewer line and opening up that easement, because they're gonna be dumping more water down through there. But they wasn't gonna do anything with that.
So I remember him saying they're not really supposed to do it, but they're gonna be doing it.
They were gonna do it because we made the point that we would have more water coming out through that faster flow than what we have now.
For those who don't know, this whole thing should have been taken care of about 2 years ago. They've been putting this off.
Right, but
and changing the dates on it.
As Mr. Shannon is saying, the state isn't planning on doing anything except putting more water through there. But it's now flooding before it gets to the pipe. I mean, obviously, the pipe is only a 40-inch pipe, and the water, when it's thousands of gallons, can't go through there. I mean, on a normal storm, and the pipe is full, it shoots the water through, and you've seen the movement of the riprap in those rocks, what, 8-10-pound rocks?
Probably more than that.
Well, and it shot them 40 feet down. Can you imagine what the velocity of that water is? The damage that water can do. Now, if they're going to put more water, either the whole thing needs to be lined, which is a feasibility. You know, they started with the riprap, maybe the whole thing, but it's so wide at some points, and it's so narrow and shallow and sedimented in at other points. That's why I said, if the state doesn't have it on their plan, and they don't, yes, they're going to remove the pipe. But remember, the pipe is not a straight pipe. Somehow when they put it in, it's juxtaposed at about 12 degrees. It's not straight. So then we've always had that problem. It's like a pool table. It comes out, it does a big erosion on this side, it bounces to the other side, and you have seen it. And this is the problem. You've seen the pictures of the roots that are all those trees that are all about or will be down in the next year or so, because this erosion is taking place. And taking out the pipe is fine, but it doesn't correct the easement. The easement itself needs to be addressed as to prevent the erosion and the flow of water through it in an orderly fashion, so that it doesn't flood and it doesn't cause erosion. That's really, and that we need to plan for. And if the state doesn't have it on their plan, and I mean, I've talked to Dougherty a number of times, and you have, that's not what their intent is. Their intent is on 45. They'll lift the pipe, They'll encapsulate a sewer pipe that runs underneath it, because it was a farm culvert pipe. And we're gonna be left with exactly the same thing, but more water, which means deeper flooding.
Why doesn't the water go into the pipes that they're putting on 45?
Because those are flooded also. They're overflowed, they're silted in. There are no pipes on 45.
It's open ditch.
It's the curbing is,
Well,
well,
there is
some
some pipe.
areas.
There is some pipe. It starts up by the school, comes down to 45, goes underneath Summit, but that pipe is completely failed. And then when it gets down by Pine Brook Road, it opens up to open easements all the way to the Jersey line.
When that,
No, matter of fact, no. As you go to, on 10 Pine Knoll Court, it goes underground. 10, 12,
We're talking 45.
oh, okay. But 10, 12, 14, they have underground pipe, sealed. No flooding there.
Well, that's a big Kobre. That's probably a 60-inch pipe there. That was put in when they built the subdivision. And that goes into the easement behind Howard Crescent. One of the things is behind Howard Crescent is that pipe big enough to handle what's going to be coming off of 45.
Is the state gonna check it out?
I was just gonna say, wouldn't the state have to make sure?
I have no idea. I don't know if they even looked at me.
If you remember the initial scenario of this, when we had the meetings at Spring Valley High School, Junior High School, and I went up to them, and I went up to Dougherty and the other engineer, and I said, your map is wrong. And they said, why? I said, because it's not underground. And he said, of course it is. I said, have you ever walked it? I said, it goes through my backyard. He says, no. And he came over with another engineer and discovered that, yes, the map was wrong. And they corrected it. And at the next meeting, they changed it a little bit. And I said, no, now part of it goes under. And they came and they did another study. They did a survey of it. And they corrected it so the map is accurate, as we know it to be. But they didn't change the plan. And the forcing of it, as Tony said, is only in that area where the pipe that exists now that is blocking the water, but the rest of it is not being addressed. Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. It needs to be addressed so that we can prevent, I'm not even talking about how my lawn gets damaged. You know what, I can handle that. What I can't handle is when the water's 3 feet out in front of my house, going in between my house and the neighbor's house. I mean, I can't imagine that the doctor that lives next door to me, I mean, when their pool had 18 inches of mud in the bottom, their insurance took care of it. I mean, she's very busy. But it just goes it goes back that way. So there is something wrong with the easement itself. It floods 945, it comes between 6 and 8, goes out to the street, and then it cuts back between 8 and 10. So the contours are there, the water is there, we need a plan. And the plan has got to be there, because the state isn't addressing it. This is just going to continue, and I will be here every meeting doing the same thing. Thank you.
I want to speak for 1 second. Hi. Ron Miller, 8 Eagle Street. I want to first of all welcome Joan back, number one. Number two, I wanted to thank the village for a great village day. I had brought one of my employees' kids and also some of my tenants and their kids, and they enjoyed all the animals and the ponies and the jumpy stuff. Thank you. I just want to address something with Hal. Hal, have you spoke to all your neighbors? Maybe if you get a consortium of people together, like Susan Shurtleff and the people to the right of you, and maybe get 10 of the neighbors and be like a stronger voice, and maybe we can get the state there, and they can see that there's more.
speak to them, no. You notice how many show up?
Yeah.
I mean,
The guy
how many other people have water problems and still don't show up?
The neighbor had 18 inches of mud in their pool?
You know the one next to me,
To the right?
yeah.
because you seem to be doing all the speaking, and all the other neighbors might be benefiting from your hard work. You should talk to them.
No one talked to them.
Oh, sorry. And number two, how many days, let's say from January 1 to the last day of the year, how many days of the year can't you use the house because of all this flooding? If there's like
No, no.
7...
No, that's never
Get
been
a
a problem.
reduction-
We can't, oh, they did.
Oh,
They already
Okay.
did. I addressed that with the tax, and they did lower it, because they came out and looked at the
Oh, okay.
the easement and
Right.
the loss of over 6,000 square feet of land.
Okay, this is the very first time that I'm here, and I don't know how to
All
go.
you
The
do is
procedure,
give
my
your
name, okay?
name and your address.
Very good. My name is Mirsada,
Could you spell it?
sure. Mirsada, and last name is Trbovic. It is Trbovic. And I live at 617 Saddle River Road in Chestnut. And I just make pictures. I didn't know how many members are here.
You can share.
So,
Just not to, as you can see, the runoff water that comes from adjacent property next to my house really causes serious problem. It is now just 1 foot from foundation of my house, and it does really compromise the structure and then compromise the safety on the road. Because each time when we have rain, we really look and pray for the safety of the drivers. So, here, just hitting on the brake, hitting on the rocks, and tremendously dangerous situation just caused by enormous stream that comes now each time that it rains. So this is the very first time that I am addressing this problem to you. I cannot solve this problem alone. It is first of all caused by, and I can film it if you want, caused by the runoff water from another property. Nothing is from my property, but it is uphill. So it actually started in the end of that picture file. You will see how my house looked before that. My neighbors started building a huge barn and probably disturbed the soil and all this configuration of the land. So maybe several years ago we started really having a lot of water from the property, and of course these weather conditions increase all of these things. So I have enormous erosion through the ditch is now bigger than me. And the last time when I inspected, I came to the ditch, and ditch was bigger than me. So it's tremendous now, and every single thing, even small rain causes big problems. The last time the probably bulldozer from you guys came to clean the thing, and they really closed the switch line that is a problem for us. Then we have to go and undig that and at least clean that sewage that collects the water. So we kind of mark that sewage with a flag to not to kind of cover with that rocks and mud, but they regularly cover it. So it's kind of a very, very big problem for us. Each time my son goes out, and during the rain we have to block and
guided water because last 2 times water came through the window in our basement. So I don't know the procedure, I don't know how that goes but I really cannot solve the problem without you. I don't think so. I cut last week, I cut trees in my property to kind of clear that path that water goes through, so we can implement something. But it was a huge production also. I mean, but alone by myself, I really cannot do it. The water has to go somewhere.
Where is the water coming from?
This is kind of adjacent property behind me. I don't know. I went here several times. And finally...
Yeah, I believe it's the property opposite the day camps to the Assumption Cemetery, right? You're on Settlement Road opposite the cemetery?
No, it's behind me. This is kind of actually...
From Ackertown Road?
Yes.
It comes from the, if you ever walk the horse farm property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all down Snow Road. That all runs down towards Saddle River Road.
All right, now there's a huge hill.
It is
Up
a
there.
hill.
Oh, it's a nice
Is there an
slope.
easement?
No.
No, the village engineer has been out there. He's gonna be here in a little bit. He had a 7 o'clock meeting. He had called me late this afternoon. The meeting tonight, and he has been there, so if you can be patient and wait for him, he'll be here this evening. He said he probably won't get here till about 8:30, maybe a little bit later.
It is.
Yeah,
8:30.
because he had a 7 o'clock meeting somewhere else, but he will be here, so be patient.
So,
Let's see what he has to say.
yeah.
Now that he's been out there.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Richie Mitzner, 810 Chestnut Ridge Road. You're absolutely right, Deputy Mayor Brock. For insurance purposes, doesn't matter where the tree came from. If it's on your property, you're responsible, except there's a continuation to that clause. Unless it's known ahead of time and documented that the trees are compromised in one way or another, dead, dying, root erosion, and it's been brought to the owner's attention, and I guess in this case the owner is whoever is responsible for the easement. And as Mr. Sherman said, a number of years ago as your code enforcement officer, we saw the problem, we documented it, and we marked many of the trees that appeared to be compromised. It's been so long, those markings have either disappeared or the trees have. But that would be the follow-up conclusion to what you said, who's responsible, and that would fall back on us, the taxpayers. I think it was a couple of meetings ago when the people from Grotke were here with horrible water problems. And rightly so, it wasn't the, not that he didn't care, but it wasn't the legal responsibility. And Mr. Presti said, if it was our responsibility, we would take care of it. Well, in Mr. Sherman's case, it is your responsibility. And for all these many years, although FEMA is most recently on the horizon, I mean, if we didn't just have this storm, we wouldn't be talking about FEMA. His property is eroding. He didn't bring up about the fence, the taxpayer money put in, it's also being compromised. So I don't expect an answer, but I just wanted to piggyback on that with some extra information. On my list, has there been any notification, scuttlebutt, or anything about the Gase taxes that were put back on a tax roll?
No.
Good. I'm happy to hear that every meeting.
I have not heard anything.
Okay. I think you have an answer about that multiple family.
Yeah, I think it was 858 or
I believe
a
that
number
was
like
the
that.
number now.
I spoke to Herb Marshall He had been in there in July, I believe. He had contacted people, he inspected the house. It is not a two-family house, it is a single-family house. It does have a legal second kitchen, but it is a single-family house and is being used as a single-family house. His understanding is the prior owners had used it as a two-family, but the current owners are using it as a single-family.
Yeah, I had suspected that it sold in the last year.
Yeah.
It had been three-family in the garage too, until I wiped that out.
He went through the house.
Yeah, but I'm happy to hear that. What I am surprised though, with all the records and summonses and court documents that were or should have been still in their building department folder, that when the house sold, presuming there was a violation search, it should have raised some eyebrows, and we could have had the answer to that a long time ago. Okay, but thank you for following up. About a year and a half ago, you gave your legal opinion that the code enforcement officers had 2 years to get certified. And a couple of times within that last year and a half, you restated that. However, I think it was last month, you said according to the county, the code enforcement officer doesn't need a certification because they're not enforcing New York State building codes and only local codes. So that means your legal opinion from a year and a half ago, correctly saying, was not correct.
I get my information from the county personnel department.
So
It's not a legal opinion. When I stated that they had 2 years, that code enforcement had 2 years to be certified, that had been told to me when code enforcement was, when the exams were removed, used to be years and years ago, that code enforcement had to take exams just like everybody else for a civil service competitive position. When the state, I believe when the state, sometime around the time that the state came in with the new building code, they changed the rules. And that's when I was told the 2-year certification, they had 2 years to certify. The rule is made by personnel. We don't certify, and we don't approve positions. The state, the county personnel department approves every position that we have for establishment, and also they approve the person who is to be appointed to that position. More recently, when I spoke to county personnel, which was just a couple of months ago when the new code enforcement officers came on, I was told by personnel that they do not have to be certified. I'm just relaying the information that's given to me. County personnel is not requiring certification. If they don't require certification, we don't require certification.
does the state trump county?
The county carries out the state requirements.
According to the state, it's required, the certification is required. Has nothing, the county has maybe unilaterally decided it isn't, but according to my investigation with the state, they're required certification. I started in 1987.
For building inspectors
No, for code enforcement officer.
who enforce the building code. The state building code.
I was very clear in that discussion because you had said that.
Yeah.
Our code enforcement officers, unlike when I was, our code enforcement officers now don't enforce the building code.
That's correct.
They enforce the local laws and the zoning codes. And I was very clear about that. And their answer is, if they're called the code enforcement officers and they can give out summonses, they're supposed to be certified.
Which agency did you speak to?
It was in the state, actually I don't have my notes with me, and admittedly it was on the phone, which I hate speaking to
You
bureaucrats
tell
on
me,
the phone.
I'll I'll check it out.
I'll get, well, they're allegedly going to send it to me in writing. And I'm not being facetious when I say that.
Yeah. No, but if you tell me who you spoke to, I'll call them because
Okay,
we generally do, we do what county personnel tells us to
all
do.
right.
If the state says otherwise, we'll certainly look into it.
But also, just so you'll know that when you answer a question as the village attorney, I guess I shouldn't assume it's a legal opinion.
I'm giving you whatever information I have
Okay.
at the time.
That's fair. Thank you. I brought up a sign at the mosque that was put up a number of years ago, and they allegedly were going to be coming back to CDRC. We're going back to 2005, 2006. I have a handwritten note from you telling me that they were coming back to CDRC in that April of that year. They never did, and the reason why I'm bringing it up, I know one of our very well-established commercial facilities in the village, Da Vinci's, has a sign. It's a lovely sign. And they're going through some legal maneuvers with the village. Yet the mosque sign that was put up illegally is still there. And I'd like that sign at least to show fairness, that they're not being given special treatment, to be addressed. They at least needed a sign permit.
I don't think we've done any enforcement against Da Vinci's. I'm not aware of it. We may have, but
Yeah.
I'm not aware of it.
Yes, you have.
We have?
Yeah. Almost done. I had asked even,
He's the one you're waiting for. Okay.
oh, sorry, I had been asking over a period of time, the Hungry Hollow Co-op from Threefold. There was an Article 78 pending. I'm asking again, what is the status of that? And if someone has an answer to it,
We're waiting for a decision from the judge.
the judge still
Everything's
hasn't,
been submitted. There's been no decision.
no decision on the
It
Article
was,
78?
I was told, again, this is not personal knowledge, but I was told that when Judge Berliner, it had been before Judge Berliner, I was told that when they moved him to Westchester, this was given to Judge Altieri, who then had a stroke.
I didn't know that.
That's what I was told. No personal knowledge, not a legal opinion.
I'm sorry I rolled my eyes when you said it was given to Altieri. I didn't realize.
And we have, but as I said, everything's been submitted. I have not seen that decision.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's with Judge Altieri now.
Okay. Last month I had asked you, although I disagreed with it because I felt it was a continuation of a legal non-conforming use, the BMW site. I know it has an official name, but we've always referred to as the BMW site. I asked what the status was, and you told me that Paul Baum was handling it. And Paul Baum, in an email 2, 3, 4 days ago, confirmed that, yes, that's all he can tell me, it's been given to him. So I put in a FOIL to the village clerk for any documents. Now, are those FOILable?
They will be as soon as it's filed.
Because I'm looking to see
I don't know if it's been filed.
the timing, if anything's been done. So if it hasn't been filed, I'm going to make a suggestion that the targets of the injunction be either changed or to include the owners of the property.
It does.
Oh, it does? It includes Mr. Tony
Board
Gates?
resolution that was adopted in April authorizing the lawsuit, the injunction, required that it be filed against the owner and the user.
Thank you. I stand corrected then.
Both of them are gonna be in the lawsuit.
I had no knowledge of that. Again, I don't think,
You didn't ask.
I must have missed a key word
I don't
somewhere.
think we ever discussed the parties.
Okay.
That was there.
Because the rumor was that a new 3-year lease was signed. And like I say, on a personal level and my old official level, I felt the use, except for the fact they didn't get a revised site plan for the modifications they made with the ramps, which should be done. I felt everything else was as much as could be was legal up, but thank you for updating me on that, I had no idea. It's not a lawsuit, apparently it's a notice of claim, which I've come to learn over the years is not a lawsuit, has been presented. And the scuttlebutt is, from different sources, that we're insured, and not to worry. So I'm wondering, how much are we insured for as a village?
With the umbrella, and if Florence has the policies waiting for you, in fact, she's going to give you a...
Oh, well, I know I foiled them too. I've been doing things now in preparation for being denied.
My recollection is that with the umbrella, it's about $5 million.
Okay, all right. And I think I'm finished. Could it be? I am. Thank you very much. You could wait. I got finished.
The women's meeting is meeting with...
Oh, so you want me to kill time and
No,
continue to
not
ask
really.
questions?
Not really. Anyone else?
Oh, there.
I move to close the public discussion.
Well, can we do that?
All right, I'd rather, since we haven't heard from Martin here, we're gonna adjourn it.
Okay, we'll adjourn it till later. I move we adjourn it till later.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So moved. This is a public hearing on proposed local law entitled Local Law, amending local law number 20 of 1987, the zoning law of the village of Chestnut Ridge in relation to non-conforming uses.
I'll move.
Public hearing.
Oh,
Public hearings, anybody want to speak on it?
Did you want me to just,
yeah.
the only thing this law does,
Have you got a mic facing you, or?
I think everybody can hear me. The only thing this law does is to bring our zoning law with respect to non-conforming uses in compliance with case law. It removes just removes a provision that stated that you could expand non-conforming uses without, as of right, and you can't. It's really just a correction. We do have a letter from county planning. Of course, these have to be sent to county planning for the general municipal law review. And Florence received facts from them today on all three local laws. With respect to this one, they approve, so we don't have to override.
I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Public hearing is closed. It's resolution 2011-62 relating to proposed local law.
I'll move 2011-62.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So moved. There's now a public hearing on a proposed local law entitled Local Law Amending Local Law number 20 of 1987, the zoning law of the village of Chestnut Ridge in relation to the size of signs. Public hearing, anybody wanna speak on that?
Move that the public portion of that meeting on this resolution be closed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So moved. Resolution.
Again, we have a letter from county planning on this local law, and they approve.
I'll move resolution 2011-63.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So moved. This is a public hearing now on a proposed local law entitled the Local Law Amending the Local Law number 20 of 1987. Must be the zoning law of the village of Chestnut Ridge to remove inconsistencies relating to referees. Anybody want to speak on that? In the record.
Again, this one merely corrects an inconsistency we had in the definition of a place of worship. It stated that there was a sentence that said you cannot have a residence within a house of worship. In our use table, it refers to places of worship and rectories as the use. So we're just removing the sentence that states that residents cannot be located within a house of worship. We're also, since we're talking about rectories, we did not have a definition of rectory in our zoning law, and we added this local law adds a definition which is, and it's very short, I can read it, a residence to be used exclusively by the priest, minister, rabbi, or similar spiritual leader conducting services in a place of worship and his or her immediate family, to limit the rectory to just the spiritual leader and their immediate family. We have a letter from county planning approving the local law.
This came about as a result of an interpretation that was brought, and what we're doing is codifying the resolution of the zoning board of appeals, so that every time this issue comes up, it doesn't have to go back for a variance, or either variances or for another discussion. It's part we're updating our zoning law to comply with that decision.
That's correct.
Okay, anybody want to speak on it? Otherwise, go ahead.
I'll close the public portion of the meeting.
I'll
Second.
Hearing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So moved. Resolution 2011-64, relating to the proposed local law.
I'll move it. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So moved. Resolution 2011-65, scheduling a special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Point of information, what's the topic?
We're opening bids.
To consider the bids
Stop.
for the drainage.
No,
Oh,
we're- the meeting, wait.
Cut off the bid.
You just
He
changed.
turned it.
Oh, you changed it.
He just-
Roz used to
Trying to
turn them
save
3
you
times.
What? He's trying to save you some steps.
Who does that like?
We changed it to bid.
This one just went. Okay.
This is resolution 2011-65, scheduling a special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Do I say? point
We're
of
opening
information
bids
again?
on the Williams Avenue drainage on the 21st. And so the board will be reviewing the bids and, if we can, award them.
Thank you.
I'll move 2011-65.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone against? So moved. Resolution 2011-66, approving the abstract of order of plan.
We skipped the justice account, Mr. Mayor.
No, no, we don't have it.
Sorry.
We don't have it.
I'll move resolution 2011-66, resolved that the funds set forth on pages 1 through 4 on the abstract dated December 15, 2011, in the aggregate amount of $140,166.29, as submitted by the village treasurer, be approved.
I'll second.
Second? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So moved.
Okay.
Now let's
Back.
go back.
To the public.
Okay.
We have to open the public hearing.
No,
No, we didn't close it.
we just suspended.
Adjourned it.
Yes, Martin Spence, I'm the village engineer. And I just wanted to come tonight just to give you an update on the status of some of the repairs and some of the drainage proposals that are being submitted and some estimates that are submitted to FEMA, which are being considered. First of all, the Williams Road project that was discussed at the July meeting, that is being opened next week, and that consisted of, prior to doing the road resurfacing, we're adding some catch basins and some drainage piping to collect the water before it gets to some of the edges of the pavement and cause damages. So we'll be opening that up. That consists of 4 catch basins and about 500 feet of piping. There's very little infrastructure on the west side near the highway overpass, so we're adding some catch basins and piping it down to the stream at that location. The other locations that we're looking at.
Martin, a question on that?
Yes.
Does these catch basins take the water off the road, or does it cause the water to run across the road?
What's happening, we're going to add catch basins. The road has a crown in it right now. It's very, very, very steep road. So we're adding 3 catch basins west of Nicole Way and 1 catch basin just west of Christine. The water's traveling on the edge of pavement. It'll go into the catch basins, into piping, get it off the roads, get it off of the edge of pavement shoulder areas, and tie it into existing drainage piping and structures, and then directly discharge it to the stream. So it's going to pick up all that water that's causing the erosion currently. You know, if you pick it up, typically you want catch basins, maybe 200, every 200, 250 feet. And this road is deficient in that, so we're adding some of the catch basins in the most critical areas before it gets down to the bottom and causing that, you know, heavy erosion. We saw erosion down by Christine Drive, wasn't getting into the stream. We're picking it up west of that.
So in other words, the water that would travel across Christine at that intersection, much of that water will come off before it gets to Christine.
The amount of water on some of these storms that are coming down Christine, and there's a catch basin near Christine across the pavement from Christine on the east side. The water's just going right by it because the water with the velocity is just the volume of water. 1 catch basin isn't picking it up. So we're adding, west of Christine, we're adding 4 catch basins and then piping. There's really no piping west of Nicole Way, so we're tying all that in.
Will that help the person at 1 Christine?
Absolutely. Yeah. The area, that's, the person at 1 Christine is having, they have a stream, a well-defined channel in the front of their house. They also have, to the rear of their house, going in a north-south direction, they have an open channel. And that's really topping, during large storm events, that's coming over this open channel, the embankment, and then going across their rear property line, going actually in an easterly direction to the rear of their pool. They have a pool in the rear, and then going out to Christine. That needs to be defined a little better by the property owner. If they do get overland flow, they need to channel it a little better. Right now, the grading goes right towards their pool. and towards the rear of the house. That's really private, more of a private issue. The public improvements that we're doing is going to cut off a lot of the water that's coming across the road and in the roadway. So it'll minimize the water that's being eroding Williams Road all the way down to Christine.
Thank you.
The other, we provided a listing to the village of some of the major areas that were causing, all the way back from the July, that flash flood we had in July, and most recently the late August event, Hurricane Irene. So we've compiled repairs. Some of these were damaged during these storm events, and we kind of came up with a listing. These include Carlisle Road, Eastbourne Drive, Williams Road, as I spoke before, Pascack Brook at Rocky Road, and that is a major, that would be the dredging of that area. Yeah, that's the most costly one. Pine Knoll Court bank stabilization, Pine Brook repairs, Christine Drive repairs, and that's including some of the that rear channel that there's that easement. I don't think it's an easement, but it's a storm, an open channel in the rear, as well as the other project we're looking at, which was included in the estimate, was South Pascack Brook culvert replacement. That was 633, 635 South Pascack Brook. Total cost of repairs are just under $600,000, and that was submitted as part of the FEMA requests.
So, I mean, we discussed a little bit,
Go to the microphone, please, and reintroduce yourself.
Okay, again, my name is Marissa Trebovic, and I live at 617 Saddle Road. And I spoke with the gentleman, I got your name, I'm sorry.
Martin Spence.
Mr. Martin Spence is going to come tomorrow and go with my son to the property and examine that adjacent property behind me. And my son can show to him exactly two huge actually spots that water is coming from. We believe that it's actually under, it's kind of like collecting pipes from the property going down. So tomorrow, you are going to see there.
This is being caused by the farms just east of her uphill off of the Ackertown, and there's no recent construction there. What I suspect is that during these heavy storms this summer, when we had, probably since March, we probably had like 3-4 sizable storms, that they're creating channels, and then it's just kind of exaggerating the locations of concentrating more of the storm flow. And the result was just deep ravines actually through her property.
I just want to say that I don't have this ditch just because of these two last storms. It is just exaggerated, and I have a huge erosion during these two storms. But this condition is I started several years ago, and I actually include the pictures of my previous conditions when we bought the house, and But then several years ago this started, and not as a big ditch. It started small, and then started increasing, and then of course in the last 2 years we have tremendous increase and in size and in erosion and problems. So it's not just recent. I just want to add.
Okay.
And she did say that they put a barn.
Yes, they had some constructions, and then since they start doing that, we felt, but I really am not an expert. I just can, assume that might be the cause. But anyhow, in any case, the water is coming from them, nothing from my property, and that you can clearly see the channels and the ditches and everything, so it's just not my water, yeah. Yeah.
We'll be there tomorrow and take a look at that.
Martin, did you put down Hartsville Lane?
Not yet, haven't taken a look at that.
Thank you very much. I mean, what is the next procedure? What is the procedure? What would be the?
I'll be there tomorrow, and then you contact me Monday or Tuesday by phone. And if you want, as I said, I know you're not available during the week, but if you want me Saturday or Sunday, if you want to walk with me, I can do that. This is, you know, it's not, the water's probably coming from a private property, obviously. I think the barn wasn't constructed in the last maybe 10 years ago. So it's a little difficult to start finding out. Maybe they will be willing to make some changes, some grading. Where I think maybe it became more exaggerated this year, but maybe over the last several years it went from more sheet flow and then started becoming a little bit channelized and became more exaggerated, and then, you know, once it goes into those gullies, then it's, you know, that was the point. It's probably started that sheet flow and then became more concentrated. But there hasn't been any recent construction. You know, it's easy when there's.
My problem is also.
Is that the Steiner property?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Martin, is that the Steiner property?
No, it's the horse farm property.
That's the horse farm.
Is that Jordan's
The
property?
barn that was probably rebuilt after
The fire.
Jordan?
Yeah, Jordan.
That barn was, can I speak for a second?
Yeah, that was.
I can't. Mark Levine,
You don't
14
want
Lancaster Lane,
Okay.
Deputy Chairman of Planning. Mark, is it the Jordan Horse Farm that's above you? Or the Steiner?
Jordan.
Yeah,
Huh?
I think so.
It's Jordan.
Because the barn was never rebuilt. The riding stable
Right.
was constructed maybe 10 years ago. But that application will be coming before the planning board either next month or the month after. So if there is something that needs to be done, the planning board should be notified of that, or Dennis.
I'll share a report, based on my findings. That's a good point, is, you know, I'll share a report, because if it's under review, then the planning board should maybe say, hey, we have an existing problem here. You know, if you want part of approvals or, you know, whatever they need, they can implement some drainage.
Right, it's under review to construct a new stable.
Buy the house. Buy the house.
By the house.
Yeah, this is nowhere near the house.
No, I know that, but if there is a problem, the board would like to know.
I'll share a report. I'll prepare a written report of the findings and give the board that information.
Also, I live up on Lancaster.
Okay.
A lot of water coming off that hill. I'm second, the only thing above me is Mill Road. And the rapids she has coming down, I have it coming down, and I'm second from the top. So the house is down on the bottom. I don't know where all that water's coming from.
Up there.
I think that's up to him. May I have a question? Yeah.
A report? Tomorrow I'll be up there, and by the end of next week I'll have a written report.
Can you will submit to the village and
Yes,
you will
I-
send it
I'll
to
copy
me?
it.
Okay, thank you very much. And then what is the procedure after? You will review the
Yeah,
thing and
let's find out what.
what is it?
Yeah.
Okay, you will find that, so I just kind of want to know what is going on, what is the schedule here?
By the end of next week, I'll have a written report with the findings, and then maybe some recommendations, and maybe one of the recommendations is to, you know, look at planning board level, some corrective measures. If they're really not doing anything, it's almost, you know, we can make suggestions to them. You may not have too much to require them, because they're not really doing anything. It's easy when somebody has an open permit, and you can have requirements on drainage, but they're not really doing anything, and they're uphill of you. They're probably getting water from other people, or, you know, passing through off the road.
They are not, they are on top, and they are very planned.
But also Ackertown comes, some of Ackertown comes that way too. So,
I have been there, you know, I was looking for them to try to talk, so I will look at the accommodation. It is flat, cheap,
yeah, no.
I have a question actually, Martin, that's, with regard, if it's that horse farm that's above you. Now, they have been before the planning board already. Do you recall ever getting a notice that they were before the planning board? Because if you're right behind them, my presumption is that you're within 500 feet and you would have gotten a notice as a neighboring property owner. You know, it hasn't been all that long. It would have only been a couple years.
Not been a while.
Well, you'll see if you'll get one for this appearance
No.
before the planning board.
It's within the last year or two.
Right, because I was still on
Yes.
board.
Was that a public meeting?
Yes.
Oh, they got final site plan. We gave them the planning board gave them final site plan. Now, they must be revising their site plan because they got the final, and theoretically, they could have started rebuilding 2 years ago, or at least a year and a half ago.
Right.
So,
They're coming back to revise it.
so they were moving actually the barn closer to Ackertown. And it is sloped in the back of that property. So, so also just be aware that you may be getting a legal notice that they're going before the planning board, and that's a trigger point for you to make sure you go to that planning board meeting. But after Mr. Spence goes to assess what's going on, you may have a little bit more information to bring back to you. But rest assured that the planning board also has an engineer that's overseeing the applications that are being submitted, and if they can see that it's affecting you, it'll be addressed on that level also. So rest assured that there are a couple of extra eyes now, at least looking, now that you've brought it to our attention.
Thank you for that information. I just want to understand, what is your role as a village? How you can help me to, where to put that water? It's coming down, and I mean, what is your role? How you can help me? It is beyond my abilities.
We can't tell you until we know what the problem is.
Let me find out, you know, let me find out, all these properties, you know, a lawn area actually generates runoff. And especially these last events, and you said that it's even further back, these last events, ground saturated lawn areas, there's a lot of runoff coming off the lawn areas. If the village doesn't have easements or drainage structures, it's very difficult. It's going from a private property onto another private property. Water, you know, if you're at a lower elevation, water is going to come across your property. It happens all over. So, you know, I'm saying that it may be a little difficult unless we get cooperation from the neighbors saying that maybe they'll regrade things. And, you know, usually a conversation with the property owner may assist. The village may not have too much available if they don't have infrastructure or easements. So, you know, let me get to that discussion.
Yes,
tomorrow.
Yeah. I just want to stress that it's really very dangerous for the drivers on the road. It's a really very dangerous condition from that aspect as well. Okay, my house is compromised. I mean, really, it is just 1 foot from foundation of my building, and it's a really scary looking thing. It's not something, you know, I just want to fancy something. But no, it's a serious, serious problem. But the problem for the village is actually the safety of the people who drive through that. The tremendous water is coming, you know, what is the situation? How do you deal with that? I mean, where to put that water, because erosion is so dramatic that stones, and it's not just mud, that the rocks and huge rocks are on the road and cover the road. So you have to come with a bulldozer to clean it. It's a serious condition. It's not that I, as a private person, can, you know, do it. And I'm really doing it. I'm trying to do it. I try to do, and it's so serious now that I have to do. I don't have choice. So I'm cutting the trees. I will probably, you know, try to see, you know, but again, tremendous water is coming down, hitting the Saddle River Road. You know, in my point of view and logic, I mean, you have to be involved on that level, and then help me to do that. Yeah.
Wait for the report. Let's see what
Okay.
happens.
Very good. So, and then when I have the report, to whom to go to? Do I have to come to the meetings? Is this
Martin
the
will
only-
tell you who goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make specific recommendations, and, you know, luckily, if they're into the planning board process, you know, up until recently, I wasn't aware of this, that it was coming, but if they're into the planning board process, we may have an opportunity to discuss with them some mitigation, try to reduce the runoff. And if the water's coming through to Saddle River Road, you know, we'll have to take a look at it, is, you know, maybe we need an easement through a property to collect it on one side and bring it through to the other. But those are all, let me take that first step, and, you know, there may be several recommendations.
Very good. And then you will tell me what is the next step to, you know, where to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna submit the report to this body, and as well copy the planning board, and then we'll do recommendations and then direction from the board.
Very good.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move to close the public discussion.
I put my name.
Wait,
Go on.
Mark Levine again, just one quick question going back to the sign law that you passed, as the description wasn't written in. So am I to understand that you're okay with doubling the size of the sign?
That's the ramification that's gonna result from this law.
Right, you could have put a limit on the size of the sign, or you could have changed the size when you wrote the law. So again,
The village board did not want to do that. We discussed it because the recommendation came from the planning board. The village board did not want to do that. They would like the plan, you know, this is the first step. The village board had wanted the planning board to make a recommendation as to take a good look at the size of the signs in the different districts.
Right.
And recommend a new law
a new
on size. Yeah.
Right.
This is this is just to deal with it at the present time.
I understand that, and the recommendation, I believe, to the planning board was to review the sign law, which is gonna take a little bit of time because it should be reviewed separately for each
Yeah, in
zoning
fact, I
district.
think I did send a
Yes.
memo to the board
Yes.
to that.
But so.
That came from the village
So
board.
am I to understand, because this could take quite some time, unless the planning board makes any changes, you have now doubled the size.
We understand, yes, we understand that. Now, one of the other things that, why we want to look at a sign restriction as far as size, because a NS property may have different requirements that a standalone
Yes,
office.
I'm aware of it, and I fully agree that our sign law needs to be totally revamped. But until that is done.
Until then, it's one size fits all.
Well, it's a big size because you've just doubled the
Right.
size.
We understand that.
And what you've also done is as Mr. Mitzner just brought up, we could have legal action going, I'm not familiar with it, but possibly Mr. Mitzner brought up that there's legal action going against Da Vinci for his sign, and I believe that's because of the size of it, but now.
It also could be the
it's-
location.
No, it's the size.
It would be both.
Huh?
It may be both.
Well, possibly, but one of it is the size, so now that the size would no longer be an issue.
That's correct.
Why would,
If the size, if they now fit into this size, there's no issue,
Right, because it's been doubled.
whatever is permitted.
Dangerous. Dangerous, you've doubled the size of any signs permitted, and people can just put them up, and then they'll be non-conforming
People
later
just
on.
don't put them up. Don't they have to go to the planning board for location?
Yes,
Mark,
But it
we
would have
haven't
to be
had a
pre-existing
15
sign.
square foot
And
sign
size
in a
change.
very long
Then
time.
whatever we've done
We
today
haven't had a
makes no
15
difference. That's
square foot
non-conforming.
sign in a very long time.
15?
If we're doubling it,
No, you're doubling it to 40 square feet.
30 or 40, depending upon the
40,
zone.
40.
Some are 30,
No, they're,
some are 30.
in residential, they're 20. In commercial districts, they were 20, but now they're gonna be 40 square feet.
No,
Yes, yes.
we'll discuss it after.
Okay, as long as, I think the planning board was very specific with that.
That's,
You know, when you were taking two sides, then each side could be 20 square feet. Now, the sign can be 40 square feet. 40 square feet, to remind you again, take a sheet of, sheet
20 by
rock.
20.
No,
No.
That's 400.
10 by 4.
10 by 4, sorry.
okay, but
Thank you.
a sheet of.
Or
sheet-
5 by 4.
It's a large sign. You wouldn't want to go down, what the planning board did was they all drove down Route 45, looked at the signs, and figured, how would we like 40 square foot signs, one after the other, and they decided it's not something they wanted to see. It's my comment, thank you.
I move to close the public discussion portion.
Can be 2 by, it can be 2 by 20.
All right. I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Thank you all for being here.
Richie, what do you think for these tapes?
Hey, Mark,
Huh?
Get a willingness bag of tape.
Yeah.
Martin, sometime next week when you're available, Howie and you and I have to meet with the lady.